knows it can be tough being married to the badge. It's tonight's cover story. The events of last Monday have law enforcement families holding on to each other a little tighter and a little longer right now. We often hear about the immense stress officers are under to do their job every day. But behind that officer, there is a family, a spouse who also assumes a great risk. WBTV's Natisha Lance spoke with some spouses of officers to find out what life is like for them.
Attention all units. On behalf of Chief Jennings, I regrettably announce the end of watch for Officer Joshua Iyer.
Officer Iyer's end of watch, just one of 4 resulting from a shootout last week that also injured 4 other officers. It's the deadliest day for law enforcement in this country in nearly a decade. The attack, a bitter reminder for officer spouses that when their partner walks out the door, they might not make it home. Sorry. Thoughts started racing through Allison's head that day. Her husband, a Charlotte area officer, was called to the scene of the deadly ambush, leaving her in the dark for hours.
Thought he could die. So.
Is that a consistent thought that you have when he goes to work?
Mm-hmm. Especially since Monday.
Hours away, Lauren felt similar feelings.
When things like this happen, it stops you in your tracks and it makes you remember, oh yeah, that could have been my husband. This could be our family.
Lauren married the love of her life 6 years ago. He'd been a police officer 2 years at the time.
When I met my husband, he told me that he truly believes that God put him on this earth to help and protect and serve others.
We're not showing Lauren or Allison's husbands or giving their last names for safety reasons. While they both say they're proud to be an officer's wife, they admit it comes with a lot of stress and anxiety.
You're sending them out with all the hope and prayers in the world that they're going to come home at the end of the day, but there is always that thought in the back of your mind that they may not. So it's a very tough reality to face.
According to the National Law Enforcement Memorial Fund, 54 officers did not make it home alive so far this year. That's a 38% increase from this time last year. But it doesn't take a stat to remind law enforcement families of the fatal risk.
When those worries creep in, what do you do?
I pray a lot. I cannot get caught up in it, so as soon as those worries come on, because it can be so scary, you could feel like a panic attack coming on. So as soon as those worries enter my head, I'm praying and giving it to God.
Faith is what Lauren says pulls her through too. It's that faith that moved her to make this Facebook post after the Charlotte ambush. She wanted people to see her husband and other officers beyond their badges.
There are people behind those uniforms. There are kids, there are wives, there are mothers, fathers, grandparents, aunts, uncles, sisters, brother. I mean, they have a community. They have a family to go home to that night. And that is their number one priority, the same way that it's mine and the same way that it's yours.
These families are every day, in many respects, preparing themselves, whether they consciously are aware of it, for their worst day ever.
Dr. Nikki Vasilis works to provide law enforcement officers and families with crisis and mental health support at Rock of Refuge in Gastonia. She says in many ways, law enforcement spouses need more support than the officers themselves.
What a lot of people don't realize is that every day an officer puts on the uniform and goes to work, the family does as well. They're the ones that give them the strength and the motivation to go and do this every day.
Dr. Vasilis says having a strong support system is key.
I always tell spouses is that get to know your spouses or your loved ones' division. You know, their partners, right? Make connections with their families so that you all can lean on each other in times of horrific events.
That community even more important when many milestones such as holidays, birthdays, and anniversaries are spent without their spouse.
They are training all the time, and it's always on their days off. So they sacrifice a lot of time away from their families, not only at work, but training. And it's all the time, and it's mandatory training.
So sometimes you feel like a single parent.
Yes.
And at times, the loneliness and weight of it can become too much.
I've begged him to become anything including a plumber, but he's not interested. That's the job that he wanted and what he signed up to do, and they can't all quit and become something simple or we'd have nobody to protect and serve us.
Natisha Lance reporting important insight. If you are a law